What's up everyone, OJ here, welcome back to another video, and today I wanted to talk about something that was kind of lost in the shuffle with the Nintendo Direct stuff and kind of what's going on and Overwatch and all these different things that are being rumored and kind of being thrown out there for the Nintendo Direct. This was something in terms of a bit of news with a studio that has done a fantastic job on the Nintendo Switch with their ports, and that is Virtuos. Now, Virtuos is an interesting company because they've done some amazing ports for companies, from stuff like Starlink Battle for Atlas, that game, also stuff like LA Noire. They've done a lot of great stuff for the Switch, and they also did Final Fantasy 12, Final Fantasy 10/10 They did all of that for the Nintendo Switch. So they've done big games, they've done a little bit more on the smaller scale, they've done kind of everything, and it does seem like that's not going to stop, but it's going to take the next level, because with all of those games, those are all just ports, right, from like PS4 or Xbox One or whatever the case is, or from the PS3, Xbox 360, but it does seem like they're going to take the next step, maybe when the next generation of systems come out with the PlayStation 5 and the next Xbox. And it seems like the Nintendo Switch, obviously, it's going to be tough to get like those ports from those systems because they're jumping up again in power and the architecture is different and all of that, storage space, whatever the case is. But it looks like companies might be going to Virtuos to make custom made or tailor made Switch titles instead of just porting titles over. So a little bit of a bigger budget in order to kind of get more out of the system, make a more impressive game. You know, games like Astral Chain aren't ported over from a different system. They're custom made or tailor made for the Nintendo Switch. Same stuff like Super Mario Odyssey and games like that that have been very impressive when it comes to visual flair or frame rate with the graphics in the game. So Virtuos is being approached by third-party companies to make these custom or tailor-made games in IPs that are beloved across the industry, according to Virtuos. So here's what they had to say. I think it was Elijah Freeman in a recent interview, and here's what he had to more like tease, more like it. Quote, "Many of our partners are already approaching us to help them create bespoke Switch titles for some of the most beloved IPs in our industry. I believe that we could, and we will see, unique versions of franchises developed specifically to harness elements of the Switch that make it so special. I would credit this to the unique portability of the console and the quality of gameplay experiences that it offers players, not a result of technical constraints." So while I did talk about how PS5 and the next Xbox, you know, those are going to be going bigger and better when it comes to graphics and everything like that. So he's saying it's not necessarily about the technical side of things, because Switch, the architecture, how it uses it with NVIDIA, GeForce and all that, you can get games on there, but they want to kind of custom or tailor make games to the experiences that Switch players are going to enjoy because of all the unique aspects of it. I think one of the things that you don't see a lot of is you don't see a lot of like really cool like HD Rumble uses, or you don't see a lot of more optimized portable play. I mean, you definitely see it and it's good, don't get me wrong, but stuff like optimizing portable play, I know FDG Entertainment with like Monster Boy, they're like doing some type of really cool Nintendo Switch Lite feature with portable play as well. So I think that the more you get these developers in terms of a budget and you give them time to kind of make specifically custom or tailor-made experiences to fit the Nintendo Switch, the same type of budget or whatever the case is that you would give for a PS4 game or an Xbox One game, that type of budget and everything is not given to Switch games from a lot of these third-party developers. It's just like, hey, here, port this game over so we can have it on the Nintendo Switch. You know, it's not necessarily something to where it's like, okay, this is going to be a Switch title that's made for the system, because we saw it with Astral Chain. Look at the fluidity, look at the graphics, look at the flare, like look at what Astral Chain does on a technical level. It's pretty much way better than any third-party game, or third-party port, I should say, any third-party port that I've seen on the Nintendo Switch, because it's doing things, it's looking the way that it looks, and to still have it at a really stable 30 frames per second when you see a lot of developers with some of these games have dips and stuff like that in terms of their Switch ports, right? So when you develop specifically for this system and you really put your all in it, if Platinum Games can get that type of result, which is Astral Chain, you know, because I was expecting Astral Chain, like in some of the more hectic scenes and all that, to really dip when it comes to frame rate and stuff like that, and it'd still be enjoyable, but I was just expecting that. But it's actually a very smooth experience through in and throughout. So if Virtuos can get these type of titles, right, and get these type of industry beloved IPs to make specifically for the Nintendo Switch, so let's say there's like a new, I don't know, any type of like game that comes out, like new action game, like let's say, just for example's sake, like a new Devil May Cry game that comes out, and of course you have the PlayStation 5 and you have the next Xbox version of the Devil May Cry game, but the Switch gets its own version of Devil May Cry 6 or whatever it is, right? That's specifically made for it, custom tailored, so it can run and it can look great and it can really appeal to what the Switch does uniquely. And even going forward, right? This isn't just something that's just for this. I don't think Nintendo's going to stop this whole Switch line or branding. So I do think that that's going to be pretty cool if they can get some of that type of stuff done. And I feel that Virtuos, out of all the different port companies, right, because we've seen companies like Panic Button do so well, we've seen also Iron Galaxy do so well, I think Virtuos sometimes kind of gets overlooked, especially with their work on Final Fantasy X/10-2 and Final Fantasy 12. Those were phenomenal ports in terms of getting the file size down, retaining quality when it comes to audio and also visual fidelity. They're very good at what they do. They might have jumped up a tier or two in my book based off of that, and I can't wait to see what else they have for us, right? We have, of course, Nintendo Direct stuff and all of that. A lot of people are talking about stuff like that, but man, Virtuos, I'm telling you, they can have some pretty cool stuff, especially if developers decide that, okay, we're finally going to take the Nintendo Switch in terms of what it can do more seriously and not just say, okay, let's just get a port studio on it, you know? So I'm excited to see the future, especially for like when the next Nintendo Switch comes out. Not a Nintendo Switch Pro, not a slight upgrade, not anything like that, but an actual like Switch 2, because that's going to advance things even more. And I feel that if the Switch was able to get those custom versions of these games, I mean, we can have great, different, and unique gameplay experiences, because we already have PS4, Xbox One, PC, or PS5, next Xbox and PC. All of those are pretty much going to be the same when it comes down to the versions of those games, whereas the Switch, you can provide something kind of different and new with the portable play and with some of the other stuff that it can do. And the last thing that I kind of want to finish out on with this is that if you look at like the Nintendo Wii, that's what happened a lot with the Wii, right? Because with the Wii, that system obviously wasn't able to handle HD at all. So a lot of developers made custom versions of PS4 and Xbox One games for the Wii that took advantage of the Wii system. When it came to third-party games, there's a new remaster of Ghostbusters coming, right? Well, I remember back on the Wii and the 360 PS3, the Wii had its own custom version of Ghostbusters that was still really good, used a little bit of a different art style, not even a little bit, used a big different, like more like cartoony art style. And there was a plethora of other games that got custom versions or custom tailor-made engines for the Nintendo Wii, and it turned out better for that, you know? It turned out really better for that in terms of what developers were able to do to take advantage of the system. So I'm hoping that the Nintendo Switch and its systems going forward kind of get that same process. Now, don't get me wrong, I still think that there's going to be ports when the next gen comes out, or when Nintendo comes out with their next system. I still think that they're going to get ports, even when people say that there's no way, like it's not powerful enough. We've heard it a million times, and then The Witcher shows up on the system, you know? So I do think that we're still going to get that, but I just feel that developers really need to start looking at that, especially here in the West. Start looking at developing custom-made games for the Nintendo Switch. And to be honest, guys, at the end of the day, really what it comes down to is just making sure that the Nintendo Switch continues to do really well in the market. And as developers continue to see that the Nintendo Switch has a sizable market, has people that want to play the games, has people that are going to go out there and buy and continue to enjoy the stuff, they're going to continue bringing games no matter what happens with the rest of the industry. So I think that's pretty much the biggest thing that is going to happen and that we're seeing happen, because the Switch continues to sell really well across the world, and it's getting the Nintendo Switch Lite fairly soon here too. And I think that Nintendo has a couple other things up their sleeves when it comes to continuing to make the Nintendo Switch appealing with games and other types of plans that they do have. What are you guys' thoughts on what Virtuos had to say here when it comes to creating titles from some of the most beloved IPs in the industry, titles that are going to be customized for the Nintendo Switch? What games or IPs would you guys like to see on the system from Virtuos when it comes to the industry's beloved IPs? I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on that in the comment section below. Alright guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Go ahead and check out the links in the description below. We got Facebook and Twitter. Go ahead and give us a like and a follow on our social media. Hit that like button if you did like this video. Let us know you guys want more content like this going forward in the future. And subscribe to PlayerEssence for the latest RPG, Japanese, and Nintendo gaming news. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.